Hello, peoples. Welcome to the Stoked Bloke Show. I'm Barton Lynch. Joining us today on our show is one of the most interesting surfers in the world, maybe one of the most interesting people in the world. He's an entrepreneur and a businessman, a golfer, a musician, perhaps the greatest surfer of all time, definitely the greatest competitor of all time, the one and only, the GOAT, Kelly Slater.
Robert Kelly.
Yeah, Robert first name?
Bob.
Bob. I'm Barton Robert Lynch.
Bob's your uncle.
Yep, Bob's a middle name. Bob was my father's name. Thank you so much for joining us, mate.
Buddy.
We appreciate your time.
I remember early days getting to know you. Well, I mean, I met you when I was young, a teenager. And, you know, you probably wouldn't remember the first time I met you, but when we got to know each other, it was in '93. We went to Fiji.
Yes.
Remember? And that was the first time we really got to kind of hang out, me, you, and Brock, and Mitsui.
Todd Mitsui, Seth McKinney.
Yeah.
That was
but
93.
you told me a lot about your dad at that time.
Did I?
Yeah.
And I was a world champ then.
Yeah.
And I remember, let's go way back. Let's start way back. Tell us a little bit about your mum and dad, what they did, how you came to be.
My mom was born and raised in Bethesda, Maryland, in a place called Germantown, and went to school there. After graduation, she had a boyfriend in high school named Sevie Roberts, and she'll probably kill me for telling this story, but she only told me a few years ago they got married out of high school.
Wow.
But it was never meant to last, kind of thing, you know. It was just a sort of, I don't know many details about it, but
moment of passion.
the reason I'm bringing it up is because he owned a surf shop in Ocean City, Maryland,
right,
called the Sunshine House, and when we were kids, we used to go to Ocean City a lot. Well, occasionally, if we went up to visit our cousins in Maryland in the summer, we'd go out to Ocean City occasionally, out to the beach and go surf or whatever. We didn't really surf then; we were so young, but we thought we surfed. But we'd be on this whole beach and there'd be no one surfing, so we kind of thought, oh, we surf a little bit, we're cool, you know. But then my mom at 19 moved to Florida with a friend of hers, just out of high school, and I don't know if it was her first job, but she got a job at NASA. You know, we're right by the Space Center there. Yeah. So I grew up, that was a huge part of my childhood, was watching all the shuttle launches and the rockets and satellites taking off. And it's just an inherent huge part of everyone's culture and life in Florida, Central Florida. My dad was born in Ocala, Florida. He went to high school in Daytona Beach. When I tell people he went to Seabreeze High, they get pretty excited because a lot of people I've met over the years went to Seabreeze High. My grandfather was a builder, my dad's dad, and he actually built the original Daytona Speedway that they do the 500 at now. Yeah. But I think it would have been different at the time, different size and everything. I'm sure they rebuilt it since then, but I don't know the full history there. But he was a contractor, so he had that gig, and he built a lot of buildings throughout Central and South Florida, my grandfather, and he eventually ended up in my dad spent his teenage years, I don't know when he moved to Daytona, but he went to University of Florida, didn't graduate, but went 3 years there, and then moved to Cocoa Beach at some point, I don't know which year. And my mom was on a date with another guy at some kind of restaurant or bar or something, and my dad and her caught one eye, because my dad had one eye. My dad was actually blind in his left eye. But I guess my mom said her date was kind of being aggressive with her or something, and my dad kind of went, hey, beat it, buddy, you know. But my mom said, you know, the first time I saw your dad, I knew I was, like, in love with him. Yeah. And so they I think they got married about 3 years later, and had Sean in 1969. I was born in 72, and Steve was born in 78. And then we lived in Cocoa Beach. We lived in the same house till I was like 11, 12 maybe. My parents split up when I was 10 or 11, about 11 years old. My dad drank a lot, and both of them were struggling, you know, in their own ways. I look back now, and I think, gosh, people really used to, I mean, they still do, but people really used to get married and have a family young, you know?
Absolutely.
Like straight out of college, you're 22, you found your wife or husband, and you're having kids, and you got your job, and you're getting married.
Yeah.
And you got your family.
Yeah.
And it's full on. You know,
and then you're engaged in that for the rest of your life.
No, you didn't really get to live a lot of things you do, you know, that you want to, or that you could do physically, and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I kind of reference that just because at my age I'm still obviously competing, and I've been able to, have that freedom to chase all my dreams.
Yeah.
Which has been really fun. And, you miss certain parts of life because of that, I guess. But it's a different, I was on a different path.
Yeah.
But my parents really, their choice to live in Cocoa Beach really afforded me and my brothers the chance to just be on the beach and surf and fish, and great lifestyle. My parents went through Telluride, Colorado. My parents both like to ski a little bit. They drove through Telluride in this would have been like 67, 68 before Sean was born. And my mom said that half the town of Telluride was for sale for $200,000. And my mom she was like, hit your dad up, let's buy this place. Let's move here to the mountains, live in the snow. And my dad was like, no, I want to be at the beach. So, I mean, if we had owned half of Telluride, we'd probably be billionaires at this point.
Well, you'd be a snowboarder.
I'd be a snowboarder. I'd probably be a skier,
Yeah,
back
you
then
would
you
have
would have
been
grown
back
up
then.
skiing, right? And maybe I would understand the snow in the mountains the way I do the ocean. But no, our destiny was our fate was to be on the beach. My dad wanted to camp and fish and hang out at the beach and have a beer with the boys,
Yeah.
So
yeah, we do understand that.
Yeah, we ended up on the beach, and I wouldn't change a thing. I know growing up, you always when I was in my early 20s, I had a lot of confusion about my dad. It was really affecting my life, It was really hurting me because I didn't understand why he drank and why he, like he wasn't the dad that, you see on TV and the perfect house. You know what I mean?
No,
you read about in a book or whatever. But, that wasn't my dad. That wasn't who he was. And that's the thing about life is you wouldn't be who you are and know the things you are if it was some different way.
Exactly.
It might have made your life easier in a way to have it a different way, but you wouldn't have the experience that maybe you were meant to have, whatever this spiritual lesson is in this world. But in my 20s, I would say in my 20s or even 30s, I probably would have said, I do wish some things were different. But now I look back and I go, no, I really don't wish that at all.
They were your cards.
This is my cards, and you got to own them,
With the alcohol, there's something I wanted to ask you about because, one of your greatest contributions to our sport and our culture has been essentially your sobriety and the fact that you weren't, as well as I do, that our history and our culture had a dark side to it, and the drugs and the partying were massive.
Yeah.
And that's what all the cool kids did. And if you didn't do that, you weren't cool.
Yeah, you weren't very cool, Barton.
Hey, I wasn't.
You were not very cool.
Well,
no.
And it sucked me in.
You became a little bit cool.
No, it sucked me in too. That is the point for me, is that it was hard to stand outside of that cool group and be yourself and keep your focus because you just wanted to be liked and be a part of something.
Everyone wants to think about school. Think about groups of people growing up. I think I was pretty fortunate in school because I was friends with pretty much everybody.
Right.
The emo kids, the jocks, the kind of outcasts. I was sort of friends with everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the cheerleader girls or the football guys or what. It didn't matter. Like I was a surfer. There really weren't many surfers in my school.
Yeah, right.
I had no friends that surfed in my school.
Yeah.
Like I graduated a class of 107 kids, I think. Not a very big graduating class.
Yeah.
I mean, we'd start the year with about 500 kids, and we had a dropout rate of about 10 or so percent.
That wouldn't finish.
Yeah, that wouldn't finish. Yeah. And which is very strange. Cocoa Beach was, it was touted as the small wave capital of the world. That was a kind of a slogan for Ron Johns, is what it was. But there was a really great contingent, especially in the 70s, of Florida surfers. Cocoa Beach had a huge surf population, I would say, in the 70s and maybe leading into the 80s. But in the 70s, like the Matt Keckleys and the Charlie Coons and the Mike Tablings of the world, all these guys before me that all went to Cocoa Beach High. It was a really deep group of surf culture in my town, and all those surfers surfed at 3rd Street, which was called the Islander Hut. There was a little beach cafe there called the Islander Hut, and it was almost like the meeting place for everybody. It was either that or there was a place in Indialantic. There was two spots, one called Boardwalk, which had a shore break, and one called Ocean Avenue, where Bruce Walker had his surf shop, Ocean Avenue. Keckley and Jeff Klugel and Lewis Graves and Jackie Grayson and Timmy Bryars and like all these great surfers from back in that time.
Pat Mulhern?
Mulhern was MTB. He rode, his dad had a shop, MTB.
Right.
But all those guys, they hung out around Ocean Avenue a lot. And then when Sebastian was good, everyone was a Sebastian. But those were kind of like the pockets of surfers. But that 3rd Street in Cocoa Beach, the Islander Hut was 3 blocks from my house. My dad had a bait and tackle shop a block back from the beach on the road just behind. So I spent my whole life in this little sort of this melting pot of surfers on that beach.
Yeah.
And it created a lot of it was just really good to see all these different types of surfing. There were some longboarders. Back then, there was bodyboarding was coming big, and there was, there'd be a bodyboarder or two, and people still kneeboarded.
Yeah.
But there were a lot of good shortboarders and this older contingent. So I grew up around those guys, and I learned from them. And
do you remember the very first time you saw someone surf or riding a wave?
No.
No.
No, I was too young. I was.
It was
I
around
wasn't
you
walking.
anyway.
I wasn't walking. I was, I don't remember the first time I rode a board. There's a picture of my dad kind of holding Sean in the water or by a board when he was 1 or 2.
Yeah.
So I know if my dad was doing that, my dad was surfing in the 60s, that he would have. Any surfer with half a brain tries to put their kid on a surfboard right away, right?
So you are second generation,
Yeah.
essentially.
Yeah.
Your dad was a surfer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, my dad wasn't. I say my dad was a little bit of a kook. He wasn't like a really good surfer. He was blind in his left eye, and he went forehand both directions because he was a regular footer, but he couldn't really see the wall of the wave if he went left. So he turned around and would try to surf the other way, but my dad wasn't really. He wasn't a really good surfer. He wasn't real serious about it. He loved the surf lifestyle. He loved surfing, but he never went on a surf trip other than to take us somewhere.
Yeah. And so with the drinking that you were exposed to, that obviously had a big impact on you long term.
It did. There was one thing my mom said to me when I was a young teenager, and I didn't know what drinking meant.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I thought you drink water, you drink
drink
juice.
drink,
Yeah. I don't know what is drinking. I didn't know that terminology.
Yeah.
I didn't know what that meant. And I remember my mom one day in the car. I remember exactly where we were. We're driving in front of Jonathan's Pub, which was where my dad used to drink, one of the spots. And my mom actually worked there at one point, so she could kind of keep an eye on him. and they're still open to this day. Our friends, family owned it. One of my babysitters, her family owned it. And they have a sign that says "Home of the World's Worst Sandwich," which is like ironic because everyone says it's the best sandwich around.
That's great.
And then I don't even know why they have locks on the door because they don't close even during hurricanes. They literally never close. They never lock the place. But we were driving right in front of that, and I remember my mom. It must have sparked something from my mom. And it's almost like slow motion. Like I remember turning on to 2nd Street right there, away from the bar, and she must have thought about Jonathan. And she said something under her breath like, "Your dad drinks too much," or your grandfather said something about my grandfather being a drinker and my dad drinking. Mm. And I go, "Well, I drink. What do you mean? I drink water. Like I drink." Yeah. And she goes, "No, drinking like alcohol." I'm like, "Oh, so that's what drinking is." Oh, okay. And she's like, "Yeah, they drink too much." And she goes, "Try to find anyone in your life, find anyone in this world that drinks and is successful with their life, She's like, there's no one whose life got better because they drank or did drugs." And my mom hammered that into me as a kid. But I really remember the first time I understood what that meant. Yeah. And right then it was patterned into me to not do that,
What a gift.
Yeah. And like anybody else, you want to know what that is, And so when I was 15, I got drunk the first time. I was in Australia with Jason Buttonshaw. Oh, yeah. And Josh Palmatier.
Well, they would have been experienced by then, maybe.
Yeah. And Chris Brown. And they were all a bit older than me, like a year to 2 years older than me. And we drank these like sparkly sort of coolers or something. And I had like 3 or 4. And I was like, I was 15. I was really drunk. I was like, oh. I remember Chris Brown, Chris was sober. I think Chris had never drank at that point, or he didn't do anything, which is strange because Chris really got into kind of hard stuff. But I remember at one point I was just like laughing and like, oh, this is fun or whatever. And I looked at Chris, and he looked over at somebody and shook his head and like disgusted me, like about me to someone else. We were there for a contest, surfing against the Aussies and the New Zealanders. And I just remember catching Chris in the midst of my first drinking experience, looking at someone like kind of rolling his eyes about me. And I was so ashamed. I was like, what am I doing? And so I didn't drink again. The next time I drank, I was 18.
Right.
So 3 years later. And the next time I drank again, I think I'd only been drunk 3 times by the time I was 21, 20 years old, something like that.
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, I did that one. And I wouldn't drink for like another 18 months.
Yeah.
And it was just like, just an experience with the guys or something, you know?
Yeah.
But it just wasn't my thing. I hated seeing my dad drink and smell like that. You know, he oozed of, you know, Florida's hot. He would be sweating and it would just ooze of alcohol. And I hated it, man. I hated it so much. And it hurt my mom. She'd stay up all night watching every car. She used to, and she used to sit on the couch and look out this window because we lived on the street, like we lived at the last street before there was kind of a peninsula that went out into onto the river, and we're the last street where all these 2 or 3 streets come together. So any car going past there would be a car that lived in that area because it dead ends. So my mom would sit there all night, and she would kind of look out every single car that came by. She'd be looking, is that your dad? Is that your dad? And it would go on for hours, and it was just so sad, and it just wounded me, you know, like to see that, and eventually it just became too much, you know, because you know, nightly being out till whatever hour of the night, or getting a call from the police that he crashed his car or something, you know, that kind of stuff. And so, you know, I try not to. I was very, very judgmental of drugs and alcohol when I was younger. And look, everyone's got their own journey. Yeah, you know,
that's right, man. Yeah.
And it's not necessarily right or wrong. It's like you got to learn the lesson from it. And you know, I've dabbled here and there with some alcohol over the years because like going through a breakup, and you're just sad and you want to like have fun or smile, and forget about things. But I hated hangovers, you know. I never want to have a hangover again in my life.
Me neither. I haven't had one for 12 more years.
It's not a good look. It's terrible. It's horrible for your health. It wastes your life.
Essentially, should be illegal, shouldn't it? You know, if you could
it's crazy.
Convince the society that this is a bad thing and have it out of the game, we'd be a much better world.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, in a perfect world, I think it's wild that anything's illegal. In a way. In a way.
Yes.
In a way. This is like this is in context.
Yes.
But if you're going to pick the better of evils, it's crazy to me that things that like plants like marijuana is illegal.
Yeah.
It's kind of becoming
because
legalized.
You may be able to grow it.
But that alcohol, which is horribly deadly for your health, for your addiction, for driving, for other people, for the health of the community, is legal. Yeah. And that's wild to me. It's backwards.
It is.
You know.
100%. Yeah. And not that you're promoting any of it.
No, not at all.
The point is that, you know, it's destructive, isn't it? We've seen it. I've been the victim of that destruction. You've seen my head when I've been the victim of that destruction at that airport in Tokyo. Yeah. After getting, acting like an idiot.
I saw you on the beach in Miyazaki. That's what.
Was that where the photo was? It wasn't at the airport?
No, I saw you in Miyazaki. You got to Miyazaki.
See, I couldn't even remember what happened.
You pulled up the beach, yeah. I just remember Rod Kerr telling me the story. Do people know this story? Have you talked about this story?
I've never really talked about that story too much, but it was a nightclub in Japan, and when we would lose, the habit was the losers would then get a train to Roppongi in Tokyo, and we'd rent some rooms and spend some nights going out. And we went in the first night, there was 15 of us. Second night there were 5. Third night there was just me and Box, and on that occasion...
Fourth night, it's sad, man.
The fourth night my head was beaten to a pulp, and I learnt my lesson, throwing punches when you can't fight. And an
American military guy beat the shit out of him.
Marines. I got held and beaten unconscious. And it was, lucky the human body does what it does and just blacks you out at a point of too much pain and goes, sorry, you don't need to deal with this. You can deal with it tomorrow.
So I got a picture of Barton the next day, and his face was literally twice the size, and I couldn't even see if his eyes would open, and he was just, it was insane. It was totally insane.
I got Mangles beaten.
Yeah. So I have that
last fight.
I have that in my catalog
I know,
somewhere
we're gonna
hidden
find
at
that
home,
one.
and I'll find it. But it's one of those ones that's great to come out 30, 40 years later. You know.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
So we are here. You and I surfed a heat. Let's take our minds back
1989.
1989.
Because you were 88 world champ, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was 17 in 89, and we surfed against each other in New Smyrna. The only contest that John Shamoka won on tour was that contest.
Rest in peace.
The Aloe Up Cup.
Yeah. Did you win that one?
Yeah, and Tom Carroll and Dave McCauley made the final the year before in '88. And just a side story, I was about maybe 15 or 16. I'm walking up the street at Main Street in Huntington Beach, and I'm at this traffic light, and I'm going to go to Jan's Health Bar to have a sandwich. And as I'm standing at the light, and the light could take a long time sometimes, you know, and then like 1,000 people filter over the street at the OP Pro.
Yeah.
So I'm standing at the light, and I'm listening to this guy talk to another guy next to me, and he's telling this guy how he stole Tom Carroll's board off the beach at New Smyrna Beach. And he has the board. He's like, I took the board. Like, why would you tell someone? Why are you telling people this in public, right? And I'm just like a fly on the wall hearing this conversation. I'm like, what? Why? And at this point, I already knew Tom.
Yeah.
I had known him for a few years. I met him when I was 10, and we kind of knew each other. I'd been around Tom and spent a little time with him here and there, like probably 5 or 6 different times. So he knew me as a little kid. And I walk across the street, and I'm walking next to the guy. We're walking up the street, and I'm like, just see him. I'm remembering his face, you know. I'm like, this is a scene of the crime right here. And I walk up to Jan's, and I walk in, and Tom was right there. And I go, Tom, I just saw a guy telling another guy how he stole your board off the beach. He goes, mate, that was my favorite board. And he goes, where is he? And he ran outside, and we tried to look for the guy. And we couldn't find him. But Tom said it was his favorite board, and he was trying 2 boards, and he left one on the beach, and the guy snagged one and took off. Just threw it in his car and drove away.
Kind of got to love it. He's got a souvenir for life.
I know. I wonder if we could find that guy and tell the story one day. But he'd be daubing himself in that he's a thief.
He did. That's 35 years ago, mate. We surfed that heat.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah. So
and you're still there.
The story was that was my first wild card on to a world tour event, and Barton was world champ, and I was the lowest seed. So in the seeded rounds, I would get the highest seed. He would get low seed, and it was high tide. It was running rights, and it was pretty fun. It was right near the beach, and you kind of finish a wave and run back because the current that would have been a south swell because normally there's not much current at New Smyrna.
Yeah.
So it was all ripping up, and then we'd run back up, and the one thing I remember about that is that either that day or the day before, I was at my friend Luke Pemberton's house. I was staying at his house or hanging out with him, and I had closed my finger in his garage door, and it had these 4 panels that would come flush together, and my finger got stuck in it, and completely squished my finger, and I fell asleep with my hand in ice. But anyway, so Barton and I surfed this heat, and I'm leading actually up until like the last 2 minutes, and then Barton gets a 9 and beats me, takes me out.
I thought I was lamb to the slaughter. It was set up, you know.
Well, I was definitely the hometown hero. Like I had a big crowd on the beach for me. I was running back up. I remember Rich Rudolph and different guys running with me. Man, you got him. You just keep that turn going. You know, whatever. Look for this kind of wave. And Barton will like this, but. I had an extra motivation because leading into this conversation now, what Barton was talking about with drugs and alcohol, I remember being out at 9 o'clock at night the night before, seeing Barton smoking a cigar or something and pounding alcohol, he was really drunk and maybe he was smoking a joint or something, and I was like, you know what, fuck this guy. I'm going to fucking beat this guy so bad tomorrow. I'm like, he does not deserve this position. You know, I lost respect for you in 100%. That time because I had such a moral sort of righteousness in my mind about this thing, right? And so I felt like I had this higher purpose to beat you tomorrow. Yeah. You know?
And I felt the same. I felt the opposite of that. I was embarrassed for myself. I remember thinking, you were there and thinking,
he's in some hotel room,
at a hotel room.
Party,
what were you doing? I don't even know what I was doing.
I would left by 9 p.m. I remember it was about 8:30, 9 o'clock, and I'm like, I'm out of here. I'm going to bed right now. I'm going to get this guy.
Go on skis. And I remember going there feeling like I was lamb to the slaughter because I stayed up late that night. I was partying. It was ridiculous. And and that was just pure. That was one of them heats where it was just pure. It wasn't anything to brag about, there was just pure luck almost, in that sense that somehow things went my way to the back end of that heat. How do you, 35 years from that moment, how have you stayed so relevant, so competitive? More or less, in a moment, you can be at the top of your game in a moment of focus. Or at a particular wave too that rises to your challenge.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, like I'm not in denial. I mean, I know people are like, oh, he's not competitive now. If I'm in the right headspace and I want to be, I can be competitive.
That's what
I think at any break.
I agree.
And I don't think that's like I'm trying to big up myself or something. You know, like it's rare that I want it now.
Yeah.
I to be honest, like the only reason I'm competing at this point was because I had this. I never had an Olympic dream growing up because we didn't have the Olympics.
Yeah, one of the things.
And that wasn't the reality. My big goals were I want to win contests and I want to be a world champion, and winning a contest was just below being a world champion. You know, winning an event on tour, even one event on tour, it's a big deal. You know. So each one to me was like an Olympic medal. Every single contest we're in, potential to be like this glory moment in your life. And I was with my friend Trinko yesterday, who shapes some boards. He's Keanu Singh's godfather, and he was best friends with Shmoo, and he's from Puerto Rico but moved here when he was like 13 years old or something. And he shapes me some boards. We surf together on the North Shore here and stuff. And we were together yesterday, and I said, he was showing me videos of Keanu's nephew or something, and I was like, we were talking about Keanu, and I said, how cool is that Keanu won a contest on tour?
Yeah.
And he beat Gabriel, and in the final, he beat John in the semifinal. You can't go through a better challenge to win a contest on tour today in the modern age than to beat those two guys.
100.
They're the number 1 and 1, right? It's not 1 and 2. It's like you're splitting hairs there. On, I think you could argue, I don't know, maybe John's the slightly more naturally talented surfer. Gabriel is the better competitor, but can do everything amazingly in every wave. You know, like it's and maybe they're both equally as talented in everything. I don't know, but just that goal of winning one event on tour, it's a lofty goal. Most guys will finish their career without winning a contest, maybe not making a semifinal. And you could be on tour for 10 years and not win a contest, but still kind of hang around the top 16.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I'm the Olympics only became, even the last Olympics, I didn't really care.
Right.
And this one I went, it's France, so it's going to be Chopu. And I was like, okay, I care again. There's a new goal. Yeah. And realistically, look, if I'm focused and I want it, Chopa's in my wheelhouse, you know. It's what wakes me up in the morning. Yeah. That's the kind of way. Yeah. When I was a kid, I woke up because it might be glassy in the morning, and there might be a little tube. And me and my friends are 10 years old, and we got our new board.
Yeah.
And we've stripped the wax off our board, and we got to beat it up. You know, we took the hairdryer and we got all the old wax off, and we made this wax ball. And now we're gonna, let the board cool down, and we're gonna slowly like draw lines and then do beads. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 100%.
So you're dreaming. Yeah. You're dreaming about this event tomorrow. That event tomorrow is we're gonna get out there. See who gets the first wave. See who gets the best tube. See if we can get a tube. Yeah. Because the waves are so small in Florida, and we'd race our bikes up to the beach in the morning, like me and Sean and Troy Proper and Sean O'Hare, and like we had this little group of, they were all a little older than me, but we'd race up so you could race there the fastest, and oh my God, let's go. And we'd race home from my house straight to the beach is 3 blocks from where I grew up, and it's slightly uphill. So the whole of Cocoa Beach used to be like a sand dune before there was houses, and the dune is maybe at that peak 15 feet high or something, and from sea level.
Yep.
But from my house, which is like at sea level, we'd go up over 3 blocks, you go up 15 feet high, right? So you're kind of like bird's eye view of looking out at the ocean in Florida. And we were riding home, the waves were like, we were excited, we were going to go surf, so we start racing back down the hill at 15, over the course of, I don't know, is that a 1 degree gradient or something? So we're racing home, and I put my feet up. We're right by the fire station. Used to be a fire station right there. and I go for about a block as fast as I can, and I put my feet, I wrapped both my feet up above the front tire, and my foot got stuck between the frame and the tire, the side of my foot.
In that little...
And it acted like a brake. And I completely grinded down, like sanded down the top of my foot, and I couldn't get it out until the bike stopped. And I remember just going, like, and just like, and I looked at my foot, and it was just white and like flesh.
Shredded.
And before the pain could even hit, I rode home and I was screaming, and my mom was like, "Why didn't you just go to the fire station? We got to go back up there." Because I rode, like when it happened, I was right in front of the fire station, but I wanted my mom, you know.
Yeah.
But so there's no surfing for me for a little while there. I still got a scar on my foot from it. Look at this thing. This whole thing right here was grinded off completely.
I can see it.
And but yeah, that was as a kid, we were just dreaming, you know, like we were imagining these pictures on our wall of Pipeline or Burley Heads or Jeffreys Bay or something, and you go out and you surf these tiny waves, and you imagine drawing the same lines you would at slower speed in a smaller canvas.
Yeah.
You know, come to the modern age, obviously I've been doing this forever, and I mean, it's a joke how long I've been competing now.
It's fantastic,
I really, and I guess in a way, because of that choice to try and figure out if I could find a spot on the Olympic team, I haven't been excited about going contest to contest for 10 years.
Really, literally.
Yeah,
that
literally.
Yeah.
I mean, when people, you know, people kind of like make fun of me for talking about retirement, but Parko and I, and this is in like 2005 or 6 or something, maybe earlier, 2004, we were on Tavarua, and Parko said he was going to do one more year. And I was like, how good does that sound? Just be done. Just this grind. It's just, just this repetitive, monotonous, which is unfortunate to even feel that way, because as a kid, all I wanted to do was surf against Barton Lynch at the Alouette Cup in 1989, get that wild card.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah,
that was,
as a kid,
even just to have that heat was a huge, for me, it's a huge memory in my life.
Yeah.
Just that one heat, you know? And that's how important it is to you. And so when you get jaded, and now you've done all these things, it's like, of course, you're always looking forward in life. You want to do something bigger and better, more exciting and different. And that's the nature of addiction, you could say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Somebody drinks one drink and they feel that. Then next thing you know, that, you know, they call it the gateway. But, you know, you always got to go further to get some other new feeling.
Yeah.
And so for surfers, maybe that's got to be a bigger wave, a gnarlier situation. You're pushing yourself even further. You're riding something that's more dangerous. And as far as competition, I can't really get that anymore.
Right.
You know, I've surfed all the contests I wanted to surf as many times as I can.
Yeah.
And but to do the Olympics would
stimulate
a different thing. So I mean, I said if I could have figured out in these years how to, it was always going to be hard to compete my way onto it, because I don't wake up in the morning caring about surfing a heat. I really don't. I like surfing. There's certain ways I love, and there's certain heats against certain people I really, to surf against John or Gabriel, or, you know, it's certain waves. To surf against John at Pipeline or Chobu.
Yeah.
Like, for me, that's the pinnacle of surfing competition at this point. Right?
Yeah.
And John and I we surfed against each other in Fiji, a couple times at Tahiti, a few times at Pipeline, maybe 3 times since he was a little kid. And made a final here at Pipe in big 8-10 foot surf. So those are things that I'm just so appreciative that I was able to have the chance at.
You never imagined 10, 11 world titles. Did you ever go, I want to win more than MR, say, he's won 4. Did you ever have, how on earth did you get to 11? Was that ever a concept that you aimed for?
Sorta.
Yeah.
Not before I started, no.
No.
It was building on it, because I was very humble about competition when I was young.
Right.
I was very I remember talking in my house one day about, I was with Sean, and my mom was there maybe, but Sean and a couple of our friends, and we're talking about one of our friends who surfed, and he had never even won a contest. And I said, I don't want to talk about this if I don't if you don't think I can surf as well as him, because I don't have the right to say,
Yeah.
like I shouldn't critique him if I can't sort of match that,
Right.
and so I was always really aware, like I didn't want to. I knew I was winning contests. I knew I could compete well and win, but I wanted to feel inside like I was better.
Yes.
And I wanted to have this confidence that I was better than anyone. But I also didn't hold myself and say like I am better than.
Yeah, you didn't have an ego that was connected to that.
Yeah, there's a
concept of
healthy
being
ego.
great.
There's a healthy ego, confidence, ego, whatever. Ego is part of that. But there's also it's also good not to have that. So you got to keep that in check.
Yeah.
And my mom always kept me in check, and that's the thing. For as much as I've said a few things over the years about my mom where she's been really like hurt by things I said, but my mom instilled a lot of really great ideas in me,
Did you?
And those would ring through my head in my lifetime. So I would always revert. My mom would always say, "If you ever get cocky, I'm gonna beat your ass." She was like, "I will beat that out of you."
I love
and
it.
so she would just, and she never was gonna beat me.
No,
but it was.
You got the point.
I had someone keeping me in my lane.
Yeah.
And that was important because that gave me respect for my competitors. It gave me respect for other people's skills. And if you don't respect, I've surfed against plenty of people over the years that I didn't respect their level. I didn't respect their skills. I didn't think they were good enough for something in my own mind.
Yeah.
Maybe
Hello
I was
Up Cup, New Smyrna, most probably that night.
I did have a lot of respect because I knew you were a better surfer than me by far. But meaning that like when I was sort of at my peak, competing with my skills, etc., I would think maybe there was heats I was scared of, and the wrong ego took over, where I was thinking, "There's no way I should lose this heat. I should win this heat." Instead of going, you know what, I got to do my best to beat this guy, and you
Anyone
have to
can beat
keep
anyone.
that humility about yourself in at the peak of your everything. You have to, but it's hard to stay that disciplined.
Totally.
Sometimes you want to experience what is it like to not be in the mind I have. I want to feel what it's like to approach it differently. Maybe something else works better. Maybe a different mindset is actually more rewarding or more relaxing or more, because I've been disciplined for so long that sometimes I just fucking hate it. I feel like I've gone crazy. Really, like
absolutely.
honestly, like there's a part of me that has gone crazy in my mind over the years because of this drive to have, I don't know, to push myself as far as I can, and you need to feel the pain of that, and you also need to come back then and say it's okay, and it's all right. You're just trying your best.
When did you first realise? Because it would seem that your competitive drive is beyond that of a normal human, normal competitors. I remember winning that world title and kind of never being the same mongrel ever again. I never had that drive again because that I didn't think I was going to ever do that anyway. No one told me I was. Everyone said you weren't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The minute you did.
I remember when you won that. I was here watching. You won during the Billabong Pro, wasn't it? The
Billabong
mobile
Pro.
event.
Yeah.
And
It was
didn't Luke make the final?
Louis and I were in the final.
I was talking to Luke about that the other day in the water, like a month ago. But I was here watching from off the wall at that contest, and that was the one where Tom Carroll had the heat with Todd Holland.
Todd Holland got the interference.
I was 16. I was watching that, and I was just like, oh my gosh. I actually still thought Tom had beaten. I thought Todd had beaten Todd anyways.
I'm on the beach.
I thought Todd won the heat without an interference.
I thought
Did you
same.
agree?
Well, I watched it and I went, oh, he's winning. Then I left because I didn't want to. I just
Jinx
didn't want
it,
to entrench myself. I went home and I came back and people like Tom lost. I'm like, stop it. Don't. I thought they were just bullshitting me, you know? Like, no.
Yeah.
And then I turned around. But Todd Holland put on a show, didn't he? He was
charging.
mate.
He did that flip in the barrel in that way. I mean, Todd, people don't understand. No one talks about Todd's stuff now, because it's a whole couple generations removed. Todd Holland was so crazy, man.
Yeah.
He used to charge so hard. He used to go out to off the wall on days where people were surfing second reef, and he would surf by himself at off the wall and pull into closeouts.
Yeah.
I remember when we were teenagers, Todd went out to Waimea. He was on that NSA team, and he went out to Waimea, and I remember thinking, wow, he surfed Waimea? That's crazy. He was a teenager. And he paddled for a wave and missed it, like a 15, 18-footer. And somebody else was in the water, told me the story where he missed it. He was on the back of the lip, and he tried to paddle, and he got sucked backwards, and he just went and went off the side of his board and went over the falls backwards. And I was just thinking, how does someone survive that? And how does someone from Florida survive that and go back out, you know?
Yeah.
But Todd was gung-ho, man. He charged so hard. And, you know, he wasn't the best pipe guy. Like, you wouldn't expect him to beat Tom Carroll at Pipeline, because I think Tom's the best ever at Pipeline, in my opinion.
Yeah. We might put you in there
And
too.
Mike Stewart.
Mike Stewart
right
question, there.
Yeah. But you know, Todd just had an absolute 100% belief in himself. I mean, he won the OB Pro.
Yeah.
You know, he won a lot of heats that people wouldn't have expected Todd to win. He just had this drive. He had this competitive desire.
I wondered that. You growing up seeing us, you know, we grew up watching Mark Richards, Sean Thompson, Rabbit Bartholomew, Michael Ho, Dane Keogh, that generation fight for heat wins.
Yeah.
And so we grew up fighting for heat wins. I suppose four people in a heat, best four waves, 20 minutes. Someone's not getting them. And if you,
Yeah.
you know, and I always look at it, refer to it like you're at a family and there's not enough food for everyone at the table. And you got to get in, elbows and all, to get food.
Yeah.
You growing up and seeing that competitive behaviour, do you think that showed you like a depth of commitment, but also a way to compete or an ability to compete that maybe your contemporaries in your generation weren't quite as aware of as you? Because you had most of the people in your generation, it would seem, whether they were asleep or whether they were too busy engaged in wanting to be liked and respected for other reasons, or whatever the point was, you had all their number. And I often wondered whether it was the lessons you learned from the generation before you that put you into a position of competitive superiority.
I think it was, obviously I learned from watching you guys, you know, like I'd hear stories of Rabbit and different guys that were just scoundrels in the water, you know, and
Exactly.
Damian Hardman. Are you kidding me?
Good word,
The stuff,
scoundrels.
these scoundrels, yeah. And so I knew that was one angle, but even at school, I was really competitive with a lot of things. Like, I won the spelling bee in my school and went to the county spelling bee. You know, I would win. Like, there'd be we'd have these track and field things at school, and I won a bunch of those. You know, running and obstacle courses, and I remember one time I was really quick, and we used to play flag football.
Yep.
And you wear a flag on either hip.
Yep.
And the other team would try to pull it off, and then you got to change the ball, whatever, you give the ball away. And I remember this, I got really good at it. And so I remember even the teacher was in on it. Our PE teacher, our physical education teacher was in on it. The whole other team said, just go for Kelly. Because I kept scoring. and I remember it was the PE teacher, her name was Miss Ditter. And Miss Ditter, I remember her looking at the other kids like, now's the time. And they all were coming for me. And so because they were all focused just on me, I saw the whole field go this way. You know, I ran to the right.
Yeah.
And I was like, they're all going to follow me. I'm going to double back, and I'm going to go that way. And the whole other team couldn't catch me. And I wasn't the fastest. It was just that I understood how the field worked, you know. And I was not the fastest runner. There was other kids that could run. You know, there's always 2 or 3 kids that were faster than me, but I could out-position. And kind of, I remember seeing this whole, the people on my team plus those people, okay, I got to get that guy to run that way, so that person's in their way. And it was like a game to me. I mean, obviously it's a game, but it was a way from my mind to try and figure out how to maneuver and win.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed. I always loved competing, and my mom she always talked about how she loved to compete, and she was good at things, but she didn't have time to be great at anything. You know, she had kids and she had a life and job and all that stuff. So I don't know. I just my mind would race on these ideas on how I could get better competitively, and then it all suited me when I got into surfing. And but to answer your question about the world titles, I used to I used to play games with myself in the water, and I'd be paddling for a wave that I couldn't catch. And I'm like, if I can catch this wave, I can win 6 world titles. Like I'd just throw a number out in my head, and I would somehow catch that wave. I'm like, fuck, it's possible. It's possible, And in '97, we were in G-Land. The third year we're in G-Land, and that was the year I won my 5th world title. But it was halfway through. I'd won 4, so I was tied with MR, right? But he got 4 in a row.
Yeah.
So I was like, I want to get 4 in a row. And then I remember being there with Bruce Raymond, Bruce was my boss at Quicksilver. G-Land was a Quicksilver contest. It was halfway through the year. We're in June now, June or July, whatever it was. And I was super burnt out. Just all those years, from basically 1990, full-time pro, on tour from halfway through 91 after I graduated. And so now I'm going in like basically 6-7 years of straight all year long, just heats, contests, focus, discipline, and heartache, relationships that had broken up and all this stuff. And I said to Bruce, I said, look, I'm struggling this year. Like my battery's really low, and I almost feel done with this whole thing, And he goes, well, Bruce is always supportive. He was never pushing me like a sponsor, like you have to get out there and do this. He just said, look, whatever feels right to you, just do what feels right. He would always tell me that. And I said, look, here's my plan, Bruce. I said, if I can win the world title this year, I'm going to do 1 more year, because it's the only time in my life I'm going to have the chance to do more than 4 world titles in a row. Mm-hmm. And I said, so I'm going to see how this year goes. I'll put my best effort in through the rest of the year. But I said, if I don't win the title this year, I'm going to retire for some period of time. But if I do, I'm full on in next year, and I'll train and everything. And I never really liked training. I just like to surf a lot. I feel like if I surfed a lot, my cardio is pretty good. My strength was okay. It wasn't amazing, but it was good enough. We're surfing 5 to 15 second long rides. Yeah. How trained up do you got to be? Like, you know what I mean? You don't got to be able to.
Have you ever been in the gym? Do you stuff like that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I like to. If my cardio is really good, I like that, because if the waves get big, I want to be comfortable.
Yeah.
But I never felt like we had to have this crazy weightlifter strength. Yeah. But I was around Tom. I was traveling with Tom and stuff, Tom Carroll, and Tom was really fit. He's always doing his gym exercises, and he taught me a lot about diet, and he got me in the right mindset to take it, to act professionally about my career. So I ended up, I won in '97, and I was just like, wow, I did it. But I'm in 96 and 97 were my best years ever on tour, statistically.
Right.
96 I won 7 of 13 events. 97 I won 5 of 13.
Wow.
Or 5 of 12. So I won like half the events in 2 years, and I was just burnt.
Yeah.
I was just so burnt out. But I had also started golfing in '95, and golfing was like, you have a bad hole and you can come back the next hole and kind of make up for it. Right. And I had talked to you about this last year. Me and you still need to go golfing one day, because I want to show you, like, you can think whatever you want about golfing, like I think about cricket.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Like, it's boring as hell.
Yeah.
But the act of repeating this thing so that you know where that ball's going to go. It doesn't matter where it goes. Doesn't matter how it flies, as long as it goes to the area you want it to.
Yeah.
And then there's a whole set of rules and an honor system, and not everyone's watching you, so you got to be honest with yourself. There's this honor system in that way.
And the surrender of all the stuff in here, the expectation between holes.
And the thoughts. You got to get rid of the thoughts and just go back to the purity of the feel. Yeah. There's a lot of things that relate to surfing.
Yeah.
And in the water if you snake someone.
Yeah.
There's a gut feeling, did I need to do that, you know? And the same thing on the golf course. Like, did you see somebody mark their ball, and they might put the ball 2 inches closer to the hole, or they'll mark it in front of the ball, but then when they get the ball back, they put the ball in front of the marker. Like, there's little, or you might kind of move this rock or move the ball in the sand, and there's, and the honesty is with yourself.
Yeah.
Like,
you wouldn't let yourself do that
unless you're competing on the PGA Tour, professional tour, and you're being filmed. None of that.
Yes.
It doesn't matter. If you
accountable.
took 50 cents off your friend, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know, or $5, who cares? But you know, it's more of like, how do you feel inside?
Yeah.
And did you do the right? Did you obey that set of rules for the game you played? Whether it's cards, it doesn't matter what it is.
Your own moral dignity, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're learning this thing, and then you might have a horrible hole, and the other guy has a more horrible hole, but because you did the right thing, maybe you won the hole, and you're like, okay, I did the right thing. You get this feedback, you know, and you feed off that loop. And so I would just play that game with myself from golf.
Right.
And so those next couple of years, I did so well competitively because of my drive. I had a bigger goal. I wanted to win 5 world titles in a row.
Yeah.
I wanted to be really good at my craft. I wanted to get better. I wanted to continually get better. And everything about surfing appealed to me. I love board design. I love working with Al. You know, Al was like a dad to me. Al was like the dad I never had.
Yeah.
You know, he filled in all those parts of my dad that wasn't there between Bruce Raymond and Al Merrick.
Yep.
And in one or two other people around the world that were really good male influences to me. They filled in sort of those places I felt like I missed with my own dad.
Yeah.
And so it was okay, you know. It made it whole, if you will.
Help make you whole.
Yeah, it helped make my experience whole or whatever.
But
then I won in '97, and I was like, okay, fuck, here it goes. The whole thing's on the line. In my mind, the whole thing, my whole life, my whole career, everything to me is on the line. I'm going to do this one last bet. I'm going to double down on this one last bet, because I'm going to try to win 6, but it's going to be 5 in a row, and that was the pinnacle for me.
Yeah.
And the only doubt I really had in my mind at that point was in '93 when I got 5th in the world after I'd been reigning world champ, and then I came 5th. But I almost didn't requalify that year. People don't realize that part.
Wow.
I was outside of qualification with 4 events to go, and we went to Japan, and I got, I think, 5th and 2nd. Oh no, sorry, 5th and 1st. I got 5th in Miyazaki, I think, and then I got 1st against Chris Brown at Hibara Beach. And then all of a sudden, I'm back within the top 16. Maybe I was in top 10 already. Yeah. And then I got 2nd. I think we went to Brazil, and I got a 5th or 9th. And then we came here, and I got 2nd to Derek, and Derek won his title. But I ended up tied for 5th with Potts, and they broke the tie. This is a funny thing, because I went to Al Hunt, and I said, Al, just keep me in 5th. When you show the rankings, he goes, why? And I go, because my contract gives me an extra. I get an extra like $25,000 or $50,000 for 5th.
Top 5.
Yeah, if I'm top 5. And he broke it and put me in 6th. It's like, you bastard.
He would too.
But no, I feel like that was the year I put it all on the line, and I was struggling between enjoying my life and outside of surfing, and having fun while I'm traveling and soaking it all up. I was struggling between that desire, which I never really embraced.
Had embraced before.
And my competitive desire.
Yeah.
And so that was the year I came into Pipeline behind Mick Campbell and Danny Wills.
Oh yes.
And once, and what you said about Tom Carroll losing at Pipeline to Todd Holland, and how you came back and you couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
It was the same way for me. I was sitting up in the Johnson's yard there, and I'm watching this heat. And Ross, one of my best friends, is surfing against Danny Wills. And to be honest, Ross is really good at backdoor, but he was never a pipe guy.
Right.
You know, he's more of a backdoor guy. And it was mostly lefts. But Danny grew up in rights, right? Right points.
Breaks, yep.
So he wasn't a pipe guy either. So I thought Ross definitely has the advantage here, because he obviously is better at pipe and more experienced than Danny. And because backdoor wasn't really for whatever reason in their heat, they weren't getting backdoor waves, so it was turned into a heat of lefts. And I was like, okay, well, that's definitely an advantage Ross. But Ross broke his board or broke his fin off his board and had to swim in. You know, they weren't like jet ski assists then. And Danny had priority, and there was 7 minutes left, and he needed a 7 or a 6. Maybe he only needed a 6. And he took off on this perfect wave, and he bottom turned, and he fell. Now there's no time left, and Ross has priority. And I'm sitting up there, and Tom Carroll's with me, and I fucking started crying, and I just broke down. I was like, my whole life, my whole dream of my life competitively is in the balance right here, and it's in my hands. It's totally on me. It's not on anyone else. I got to go win this heat against Rob Machado.
Yeah.
And it was another, because we had the heat in 95.
Yeah, with the high five.
But this is 98.
Yeah.
And now I got to beat Rob. And there's nothing on the line for Rob other than personal.
Yeah. Doing well at Pipeline.
Trying to win Pipeline.
Yeah.
But there was no position in the rankings that were in the balance for Rob, and it was more of just like now it's a guy who's one of my best friends on tour. Mick and Danny were like comrades trying to take me out. You know what I mean?
It was a 2-on-1.
There was a whole lot of weird scenarios because me, Danny, and Mick all surf for Quicksilver, and we're all close with Tom Carroll. We're all close with Bruce Raymond. We're all like we're a team. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
But they're Aussies and we're Americans. And now instead of it being me against Sonny against Rob in '95, now essentially me and Rob are kind of on the same team. But Rob is not going to go out there and let me win.
Yeah.
And I would imagine if I were on the other side of it and seeing like an Aussie against an Aussie, like if it's Mick and Joel, right? Best buddies, surfing together, growing up. And if one of them wins this heat that doesn't really matter to the other guy.
Yeah.
And he wins the world title, he accomplishes his life goal. You would think.
It's massive.
Right? You would think, okay, well, Parko might just give this one up for Mick or vice versa a little bit.
Yeah.
But Rob, this is the thing people don't know about Rob, is like Rob's fucking competitive as hell, man. I mean, he smokes me on the ping pong table. He's good at golf. He's good at tennis. Rob's good at like everything he does. And after the heat happened and I won the heat, we all celebrated. Rob celebrated, but Rob didn't try to give it up to me at all. It just turned out some crazy backdoor waves came and I got him. But I talked to Rob after and he said to me, he goes, right before that heat, I was nervous. So I called my brother. And Rob's brother, Justin, is like, he's a jock. He's a baseball player. He takes no shit from anyone. He's a big dude. And he's just, and he's like he's always been like a big brother to me. Mm-hmm. Like he'll put me in my place. He always put Rob in his place. And he talks shit to you. He helped Rob's family, Rob's brother and his dad helped stimulate my competitive fire my whole life from when I was a teenager. I used to live with them at times, for periods of time, weeks at a time. Rob and I traveled together, but Jim, Rob's dad, who recently passed away, and
rest in peace.
And Justin, his brother, they were the biggest shit talkers I've ever been against competitively. They had no fear. They're like Michael Jordan, those guys. They were like the masters of shit talking to you. It's incredible. And so Rob told me after the heat, he said, I was kind of nervous because I didn't want to give you the heat. I didn't want to lay down and look like a pussy. Yeah. Is basically what he told me. Yeah. And he goes, I called my brother. I called Justin, and Justin said, you know what? You go out there and you try to kick his ass. You do everything in your power to kick his ass in this heat. Do not give him 1 inch. Yeah. And he goes, and Rob goes, that's what I did,
And that's the way it's got to be.
Yeah, and he goes, you shouldn't be champ if you can't beat me, That's what Rob basically told me. And I was like, man, I respect that. I love that.
It looks like it still brings up emotions, that moment. You can still feel that moment. It brings up the concept of peaking at the right time.
Well, Tom, just on that note, I mean, Tom, I've told this story before, but Tom was hugely helpful, maybe the most helpful for me at that moment, because Tom Danny Wills grew up with Tom, Yeah. And so Tom watched that heat. It must have been hard for Tom because he's watching a kid he helped kind of usher into this thing and surf with him his whole life. And he watched him just kind of fail in this moment. But he was still ahead of me in the points. And then Tom went and helped me, and we went and just did some yoga and did a meditation, and Tom helped me calm down because I was crying. I was a mess, Yeah. I'm like, I can't believe this opportunity has been given to me in this lifetime, is how it felt.
Yeah.
I knew it. I knew it was all right there.
Yeah.
It was the potential glory or lowest point moment of my life. And Tom helped me through that, And he just said, good luck, gave me a hug and told me he loved me, and we were both crying, and I went out and did my thing,
It's a beautiful thing.
And then that was when I went,
that was your 5th in a row.
Yeah, it was my 5th in a row, my 6th world title.
History's been made.
And I went, you know what? I need some time off. And I need to go have some fun.
Yeah. In your success, in anybody's success, there's a certain amount, and you said the word magic. right? You, in my mind, have tapped into the magic, and maybe the magic's peaking at the right time. And when one of those performances, say the early rounds, you're not doing very good, but you have this deep faith in yourself, and hey, I don't need it now.
I had one of those against you once at Reunion Island.
Oh.
This is in about 96 maybe or something, 95. We had this heat, and you had started out with like an 8.5, and the waves were, remember, it was really big one year.
Right.
And it was really hard. You had to get the in-between waves because the big ones were like, I remember Poto catching the giant ones and going out into the channel, doing nothing on them because they were just mushy.
Right.
And the good ones were sitting back on the reef in between the sets. It was like 12 feet out the back, huge.
Yeah.
By the way, there's no way I'd surf St. Lou right now way out the back where we were because there's so many sharks.
Might be illegal.
I had been playing shuffleboard in that hotel we were at, right by there, and you each got like 3 or 4 of those little ski ball. It was, and one shuffleboard, whatever, one of those things, and somebody could be beating you, and on the very last one you could do a Hail Mary and knock all their things off and win.
Yeah.
Right, and we and all the boys are playing this, and I remember I was in this heat with you, and it was maybe it was for 9th place or something, kind of early in the contest, and I remember seeing you get this wave and hearing you get an 8.5, and I was like kind of in the hole in the heat, and it was a long paddle, and I had caught a couple waves already that had been like 3s or 4s, like they weren't good scores. Got to replace those. Yeah. And I thought all I can do is be in control of this moment and how I feel right now. I can't think about what's going to happen in 12 minutes or you know. And so I started doing this sort of almost like an active meditation. Excuse me. Where I started thinking, how does the water feel on my hands when I paddle? And this stroke, and think about each, be purposeful.
Absolutely present.
Be completely present and purposeful with every action you do, every thought you have. And so I just started thinking, instead of worrying about what's coming or which wave I'm going to catch, all I can do is enjoy. I got to enjoy this. Mm-hmm. We just traveled all the way to Reunion Island from the other side. There's a 48-hour trip to get here, you know. I'm like, just enjoy it. And so each paddle I was enjoying, I was just feeling it, and I did something that caused my brain to get super present. And my next wave, I think I got a 9, and then I beat you in the heat. And I was like, I think I was comboed at the time, but I went, wow, what a positive, that I talked about feedback loop. Yeah. And I thought, what a positive feedback loop. I did something that helped me feel better, and I ended up winning from it. You know, it put me in a place that gave me the opportunity. And so I started doing that. That was 90, I'm sure it was 96, 95 or 96. But that was when I really went on that was the moment, that heat against you was the moment I felt like I went on my winning streak for the next couple of years.
Wow. Because you found, out of the desperation of that moment, you found a way to
get
bring
present.
Yourself completely present and enjoy every moment of it, and then the rest of it around you took care of itself.
Yeah, then you're just picking out the thing, because when you're that's like the Matrix movie, right? And when you get really in that flow, anybody can do this at any time, you know. You can get there just with the right thought or the right choice or whatever. But then you feel like you're just picking things off the buffet. Yeah. You know, you're not trying to force. You know, I was watching. There was somebody in a heat you were doing commentary for the other day at the ISA Games. It was Sebastian Williams. Oh yeah. In the heat he lost. Right. And he kept trying to catch these waves and force things to happen. Yeah. And I saw it happen a little bit with Leo in the heat he lost too. Yeah. But you could see the energy. You know, you can feel it when somebody stands up on a wave. Yeah. You could feel with Medina last week. You're like, the kid's not going to put a foot wrong. He is so focused on the goal. Yeah. You know, he, like Gabriel, has got something special. You know, like really, really, like few people will ever have in surfing. Special. 100%. In his ability to create the situation the way he wants it to be.
And disconnect from physically and mentally trying to make something happen and just have that trust, eh?
Yeah, because when the waves especially fit what he does, catch lots of waves, do a big maneuver, finish the wave out, it's hard to ever beat the guy because, you know, on his forehand, into the wind, like it just set up. He just was licking his chops the other day.
He was, you know? 3 foot left into the wind.
And even with a guy like Iago, who's great in those waves, and that was the battle, right? That was the battle last week. Was for them, one of them to make the Olympic team. Yeah. And I was like, Iago's got a huge, lofty challenge ahead of him. And Medina, it's not as lofty. Like,
Yeah.
there are times where I go, well, Iago could beat Medina pretty good today on this day or whatever. But looking at those, the way those, and Iago's more of like a kind of languid, like feely surfer, right?
Yeah.
And he needs a little space sometimes. He can fit everything in a tight wave pool. You know, you've seen a wave pool edit probably.
Stuff, yeah.
But he kind of like, he's a little more flowy.
Yeah.
And not quite as fast maybe, or in the tight space. And so I saw that the huge advantage to Gabriel going into that.
Yeah.
And being lefts on his forehand into the wind, you know, it was going to be a big challenge for like a Leo or a Kanoa or John or those guys that were at that event to try and match what he could do.
Yeah, and if you take it from out of a physical context, what is the state of self, that personal development angle, which certain people seem to be able to disconnect from? Gabriel doesn't seem to actually ever go to that place where he gives about what people think.
Yeah.
Or, you know, he's living in his space so truthfully that it's a powerful thing, hard to beat.
He is a cold-hearted competitor.
Just in a beautiful way.
And he knows that works, and it's a and it's a huge advantage for him to not. You know, I think I definitely experienced that at times, even for years at times. Mm-hmm. But I was more emotional than Gabriel, for sure.
Yeah.
The emotion is the thing that gets in the way.
Yeah.
But the passion is the thing that drives it. So there's a difference between the two. Mm-hmm. You know, the passion. So like right now, I look at this situation and I go, okay, the Olympics.
Yeah.
Who's going? Who's advantage? Who's good there? You know, you got to go look at. You got to go. Okay. John, Gabriel, Jack Robinson, the favorites, right?
Yeah.
To win at Chopu.
Yeah.
And you got dark horses like a Leo, maybe a Kanoa.
I even go Alonso Correa. You seen that guy surf out here? Like, he is a mad surfer.
Yeah. So you're going to put these guys on
maybe
in your mind. You know, leading up to that event, you think here's the people who have the advantages or who the favorites are, or whatever. At this moment, right this second, I think Gabriel's so far ahead because of the whole situation. Mm-hmm. He didn't make the team by one wave. Yeah. In more than one situation. He lost to Jack Robinson in the final after having Jack basically comboed or like way ahead in that final last year, and Jack comes back and beats him. Gabriel misses out by one spot from making the final five. Gabriel didn't make the final five on tour in 2023.
It's an odd concept, isn't it?
It's crazy. Yeah, and Italo didn't, and you know, Iago didn't. But I mean, some great surfers didn't. But you would expect that you would think Italo, John, Gabriel are shoo-ins for that final five, right? Like ahead of everyone.
Well, you would think Gabriel for sure.
Gabriel for sure, yeah. John obviously has had some injuries, and that's been the tale of his career, other than his world titles, has been the injuries, unfortunately. Yep. But you look at everything Gabriel, and I texted Gabriel the other day, and I said, man, congratulations. You were just, like, incredible. Like, it's amazing what you're doing, because your back is so against I said it in, like, 2 sentences. I basically said, like, you're doing what you have to do, and it's incredible how it's working out. You know? But he misses out on the final five, heartbreak. Misses out on that world title. I mean, Gabriel being able to go left at lowers also into the wind, big airs. He beat Italo out there like that. So it was such a heartbreak. Didn't make the Olympic team, didn't make the final five, and lost his chance to have another world title. And then he has to go and now do the ISA games. He has to beat Iago. He has to sort of win the thing. The Brazilian team needs to win the men's side. So many things are against him. Yeah. That have to line up, and he made it happen. And you know, I mentioned to you, does Felipe and Iago want to do well enough for the men to get an extra spot on the team? And well, now it's going to be Joao, Felipe, and Gabriel. But obviously, Iago's going to do his best because he wanted to he wanted that, but now he has to also, there's a contest within the team. He has to beat Gabriel. It's super interesting.
And if one of them, Gabriel Yago, finished there was 41 points between Brazil and France. One of them gets one place less. Gabriel does everything he can do.
And then Yago goes,
one heat less, he don't make it.
That's crazy.
They all got just where they needed to get.
So if you know, for people paying attention to this situation, to me, the universe right now is slipstreaming Gabriel to achieve his goals.
Yeah.
And I think everyone should be terrified to have a heat because now he's already basically had 1 foot in the loss, right? The flames are on his feet.
Yeah.
So in a way, he's already felt that. He has nothing to lose. There's no fear now.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to worry about going from here down to here.
Yeah.
He's already been down here. He shouldn't have been in the Olympics. And so to me, the energy is all pushing him forward, and he's just riding this drafting of this energy, the wind. You know, there's a big truck in front of him, and he's getting way better gas mileage right now. I think it's super interesting. And
you talk about it as energetic, which we're all energetic beings. You imagine the collective energy of all of us vibrating and resonating on a planet. What comes out from our planet into the universe. How do you make that energy? How did you, on 11 occasions, make that energy work for you? I'm sure different ways, different times, right?
Yeah.
But where does it get to now as you reflect and you go, wow, is there anything you go, that was the most important mindset change or the most important physical thing? It was what do you feel like you could credit? Is there anything singularly, or is it just a compounding of everything?
Singularly, it's a bigger vision. I want to have the most success I can in this lifetime.
Yeah.
I want to achieve, and I don't know what these goals are, but as they pop up, I can't win 5 world titles in a row without winning 4, right? Without winning 3. So it was like I had to look at these potential steps that I need to get through. And if I do this, great. Then I'll think about something else. But you can't think about anything. It's that moment, being in that moment, being present in that time, envisioning a whole potential laundry list of all the things you ever dreamt of. Mm-hmm. But then you got to just start somewhere and take a step.
Yeah.
And then if you get through that step, what's the next step? And I've made 2 steps. How would I make 4? You can't do that alone. You need you got to make good personal decisions for yourself that create good karma in your life, create good energy, people that like you, people that want to help you, people that celebrate your success, and you need to find good role models, men and women that are older than you, that have experience, that love you, that help you can bounce ideas off of. You need therapy from your friends, and you need people who don't have an ulterior motive to say hey, this is how you should try. Maybe look at it this way. Yeah. And I had Al Merrick, I had Bruce Raymond, I had Pierre Agnes, I had Jack's dad Jeff Johnson, Pef Ike, who's kind of my godfather, basically. Different people that I was able to bounce things off of. Jeannie Chesser's kind of been like another mom to me, and Bruce's wife Janice, who passed away. Yeah. Barb Green, Al Green's wife, who started Quicksilver, and these people all became my support group over the years because they're my friends and they're like family to me. You know? And through all my heartaches, they gave me time and energy to talk me through things that were, hurting. That, at times I didn't feel I could talk to my family about. I needed someone outside, and you need all those. From my experience, I needed all those. I don't know, a person like Gabriel might be different. Yeah. But for me, that's how it felt to figure out how to have the best results. And I got Trevor Hendy, a very good friend of mine, who's been a huge help, and a guy named Justin Kosist, who I met through Trevor, who doesn't surf. I don't think he's ever ridden a wave in his life. He's just this New Zealander guy who lives in Australia and sort of life coaches people and helps them. And I've spent many times with him over the years looking at my life and the things around me to try to be a better person, and be a better friend, and and I am aware that this singular goal is a selfish thing on some level, for sure, 100%. Even if you're out there just trying to catch a wave of backdoor, or if you're trying to win a world title, or if you're just trying to get a better board,
Make yourself happy.
yeah, make yourself happy. But yeah, I don't know. You're navigating all these things. I want to be a good person too, and I know I fail at that at times, and I'm probably an ass to some people. But I got my girlfriend Kalani. She and I have a really good relationship. We've been together a long time, and her family's super supportive of me. And as I get older, I've accepted a lot of things that have allowed me and my family to be closer. And it's just, no one's life's easy, man.
Mate,
no one's life's easy. You can look at someone from the outside and go, oh, they got it easy, and be jealous or angry or something. But everyone's life is hard on their own relative scale.
Yeah.
And whether you were born rich or you had nothing, and you can be a success through whatever that challenge is. And maybe for some people it's harder to be born wealthy in a trust fund and be a great person and be an addition to society that everyone loves. Yeah. But it's easy to see when somebody's like homeless or born with nothing, and they do great things in their life for other people. You just go, man, that is the goal.
Yeah.
That is like greatness.
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone's got their own challenges. And
Well, you've been able to invest in yourself to the point that has created historic levels of success that we never imagined possible. Then you've also at the same time focused in, as you said, your music and your golf, and you've found solace in those things. You've also done really well in business, mate. You've got, what have you done? I was looking at it. So you've got boards with Firewire, Outerknown with the clothes.
And I would probably put fins with that, fins and accessories.
I've got that too.
Yeah.
K-fins here. You've got the shoes now.
Yeah.
You've got video games, the beverage perps. You've got the wave pool.
Yeah. I mean, the video game thing, we did that once, and it's done. The perps is kind of making a little bit of a comeback. Pat Tenori's kind of get it going. But yeah. But it didn't quite, we were hoping for this potential like opening for us to make this health drink that was going to really launch, and we, for various reasons, we had struggles with it, but it's doing all right now. It's starting to, but I'm not really active in it, but it's, it'd be great for us to do good. But I invested in a number of things, like Solento, that Taylor Steele's tequila company, which is ironic because obviously I'm
you don't drink.
But if you can keep it sensible, you can have a drink here and there, but I don't think people should drink for hangovers ever.
So how
the wave pool stuff. I don't know. Wave pool is just
productivity, mate.
Somebody asked me how, did you think about that when you were a little kid? And I was like, I don't know. But I think maybe I did, because I was from Florida and we had no waves all summer. And we used to go surfing behind the boat. And imagine there's a wave. And then we'd go to Wet and Wild and boogie board on the little wave pool they had. It was about 6 inches high. And my brain used to, I guess something was implanted then. But Matt Keckley called me once and said, I still have this wave pool technology. I think that you could get involved and make it happen. And that's how it happened. Right. And so Matt kind of put it on me and said, do you think you could? And I went, let me go see this thing. Yeah. Which, one of my proudest days was having Matt Keckley at the wave pool after Matt put that seed in my brain.
He's a legendary. He was such a great surfer, eh?
Yeah, and my shaper and mentor. And he used to take me in his car with Sean before heats and have us breathe oxygen off a tank. Really? And I was like, is this legal, man? What is this shit? He's like, any advantage you can get. I think most of the business things I've done, they've been natural extensions. We all made money from clothing. Clothing was a natural extension. Guys wanted to make board shorts. The Al Greens and John Laws of the world and the Gordon Merchants of the world. These guys all just went, let's make surf trunks. Jack O'Neill, let's make a wetsuit. And that's how they all got started. So there's surfing has become an industry too, which isn't why we got started, right? But it is a natural extension of a surfer. Like, I don't think you're going to go get an IT job when you're, or like start a tech company when you're a surfer. hard goods and, there's things that we use. So
It's great to see the entrepreneurial spirit in the young surfers of today.
I love it.
It's
yeah.
incredible, isn't it?
No, I like
the
seeing,
stuff that they're doing.
like
Nathan Florence, for example, just
John Florence.
yeah,
Na-
and
oh,
Nathan
Nate
with his own his media, the content
yeah,
he's
yeah.
creating.
And Jamie O'Brien.
Jamie
You see
O,
what Jamie's
he
done
was a
with his
leader
media.
there.
See what Ben Gravy. There's a bunch of different people in different kind of lanes doing their thing. And I liked in the early '90s there was a lot of skaters starting like shoe companies and skate companies and stuff. And I thought, surfers should do that. But we all had sponsors like Quicksilver and Billabongs and Volcums and stuff. But that was the spirit in the early days for surfing. And I like to see that come back around with John starting his company. Dane started his company. I started a clothing company. I thought, look, everything has a life cycle.
Yeah.
And you see, like the Quicksilvers of the world have died. Like it makes me super sad. That was my family.
Yeah, it was.
And they made my life great.
Yeah.
You
helped make theirs.
They helped me buy houses and travel around the world, and chase my dreams. And Danny Kwok gave me a contract when I was 18 years old, and I couldn't believe that they wanted me to be on Quicksilver. It was like a dream come true. But like I said, everything's got a life cycle. Things are gonna peak and end, and I think you always need fresh energy. In everything, in companies, on our world tour, in politics, all these things need new people with new ideas because the world's changing and it's changing with technology. It's changing with new ideas. Like the way guys surf waves right now is different than when I was a kid watching the way people surfed waves.
Yeah.
You're still doing off lips and stuff, but there's different approaches to it. The equipment's different. The lines are different. How do you think surfboards in your era would have been different had you had pre-shape, like computer shapes, and being able to like really tune in the one shape that's the best thing or whatever?
Yeah, I always wonder.
And wait, let me add one thing to that.
Yes.
Because I've always felt it was an advantage to surfing as a whole in the world that not everyone had access to everyone else's designs.
Yeah.
Because you grew up in Sydney, right?
Yeah.
You grew up at Manly, and you had a certain wave.
Yeah.
Rabbit and those guys grew up on the Gold Coast surfing a hollow right point break, right, sandbar below sea level or D-bar. Yeah. So there's a certain, like they had more tail rocker. And in Florida we had wider, flatter boards. Mm-hmm. And you weren't privy on YouTube to see, or Instagram to see everyone's clips every day. So you had to imagine, oh wait, I heard the guys in Santa Cruz are doing an air. So this is kind of, or Davey Smith in Santa Barbara was trying to do a barrel roll. Mm-hmm. So we back then, as I was a little kid and you were kind of like getting into your thing, there was an idea. Each grouping of surfers around the world had their own style. Larry Berleman and Buttons, those guys, 360s and trying airs and skate influence. Yeah. So what do you see are the advantages and disadvantages of back then and now?
Obviously the consistency, isn't it? My son's got a shape blank off the machine and sanded it to finished. He's 9.
Wow.
So it's the type of thing that opens up opportunity for anyone to be a shaper. The first thing you would do as a professional surfer is learn the program. Yeah. And be able to design and tinker and play with your own boards, and you would not necessarily have to finish them, but you're involved.
Think if you had a computer, all those 24-hour trips, and you knew how to design your board, and you could tinker on your computer the whole time on a flight.
I'm learning it now, the system. Yeah. You know what I mean? For that reason, just to be able to be engaged with it. When we were, Greg Clough was like a father to me at Aloha Surfboards, as Al Merrick was to you. Mm. And I'd order a 6'1" to be 6'3". He didn't even measure him. You know what I mean? It was loose.
I'd get a board from Morris back in like the mid-'90s in France, and I learned right away to not even tell him what I wanted or anything.
Yeah.
And he would write on there, like, the size would say 3 foot 15 inches. Or something, just something ridiculous. And he's like, and I'm like, what is it? He's like, I didn't measure it. I just kind of eyed it up. And
looked good to me.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's how it was. But I think that this new age, everything comes with its ups and downs, doesn't it? There's nothing, like you said, no one's life's easy. Everyone's life, everyone's journey, every board, all of it, all of the technologies, they all have the pros and the cons, and in time you get to see. The thing that I'm interested with you is you have been in the spotlight for, 35, 40 years,
yeah.
Right? 40, call it, if you been competing 35, you were in the spotlight before that as a young grommet. How have you stayed out of trouble? How have you had such a good, like, if people, anyone else is there for 35 years, they've been through some shit, man.
Yeah, no,
There's going to be some controversies and some this and some that. But that maybe speaks volumes for you as a person, but you largely have represented our sport in such a dignified fashion for so long, with such, I don't know, grace. It's been a good innings, mate. I don't know how you haven't been in trouble and haven't fucked up somewhere along the line.
Yeah, I probably have here and there, but I never had a drug addiction. I never beat anyone up. I love surfing. That's the number one thing, and the rest is noise and fun.
Yeah.
I've obviously been in outside of surfing a bit with my life and relationships and work and things like that. But the most important thing to me has always been the focus is my surfing. Mm-hmm. If I'm in the news, I hope it's my surfing, not some other thing. One time, Kalani and I, we walked out of. I flew back from France. And we were in LA for this. Channel Islands had opened a shop on Wilshire or whatever, in Hollywood. And we were walking out of the shop and we're hand in hand. All of a sudden, these cameras come right on us, and the guy starts asking me about some Hollywood girl I've never met.
While you're standing next to you,
holding hands with Kalani, right? And says, "Oh, we heard you were with so and so at this place last night." Right, and I'm like, and it's funny because Kalani and I were in bed in Santa Barbara the night before, and I'm like, how do you guys? I just look I go, how do you guys make this shit up?
Yeah.
I go, this shows me how crazy you guys actually are, because this is completely, there's zero. I've never met that person, and it's crazy that you're just trying to make a story, or you even heard who said this. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
I go, she and I were in Santa Barbara. We had dinner at the house and went to bed last night. What are you talking about? And the guy it was maybe the first time the guy ever got a response that sort of put him in his place. I'm like, don't do this to people, man. But that feeds itself. That stuff's terrible. It's gossip is terrible,
Yeah.
And a lot of people in the public eye aren't afforded a private life, in a way, and that can drive you crazy.
Yeah.
Look, I dated Pam. I was asking for it,
You were.
And
Baywatch.
But she and I had a personal connection besides that most people didn't know about for a long time before anyone thought we dated.
Right.
And when it became public, it was really uncomfortable. Mm. I didn't like it. Yeah. Maybe I don't know, but I just didn't like it. And but it comes with the territory,
Yeah,
Some people are very, very public, but I'm thankful that I've no big controversy in my life or anything,
So far, so good, brother.
I don't know, surfing's enough,
Yeah, it's medicine, mate. Saves you. Let's talk. Let's.
Did you do sustainable content?
I'm just coming there. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about sustainability, and I know that with Outerknown and the products and the businesses you've created, you're very conscious in that space. Important.
Yeah. So Outerknown is an interesting one. I started a company with Quicksilver called VSTR. I was telling someone this story the other day. Quicksilver got sued for it. When we were talking about starting a company. I wanted to do something that's a little more upscaled from just surfing. I want to make nicer clothes. I want to make something sustainable at Quicksilver, because I didn't know much about the clothes, where they were made, who was making them, where the textiles came from. I didn't know any of that stuff at Quicksilver, and I would hear murmurs when Twitter first started. You hear these different business practices and how bad it was for the workers, and
Nike making shoes in sweatshops or whatever. Yeah.
And there was even one guy who was an ex-pro soccer player who dedicated his life to exposing this. And I used to follow him, and I communicated with him a bit. And his thing was called Nike Sweat, and it was all to expose things they hadn't paid for or bad conditions or whatever for Nike. And so he dedicated his whole life after having been sponsored by them. Right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, trying to challenge like basically the biggest athletic company in the world. So I would read, and I didn't know what was necessarily true or not, but he was exposing a lot of stuff about factories and the workers and stuff. And I just went, that's embarrassing. And I don't want to be part of that. And so I told Quicksilver, I really want to start something that's transparent and sustainable and upscale, like clothing you really want to like own for a long time kind of thing. So I was in Morocco. It was in 2009, and it just struck me one day. I went, visitor. We're visitors to all these places, and I was like, that'd be a great name. And I wanted to make a name tag where it says visitor, with the white tag with the red on the bottom says visitor, and you put your name in there. Yeah. And I wanted that to be our logo
on a T-shirt.
Yeah. So it's just visitor. And so we tried with that, but somebody owned the name Visitor, and so Quicksilver didn't want to pay for it because the guy was like, "Oh, it's $250,000, you can have it." And then they thought about it and they were asking me, and I'm like, "Fuck, that's a lot of money to start. You haven't even paid a penny to make a piece of clothing, and it's $250,000." In my brain, I couldn't get around it. Yeah. Even though Quicksilver is worth $2 billion, Right. But so they were like, "Oh, hummed and awed," and then they went back to the guy and he was like, "Oh, it's $400,000," and they were gonna have to chase their tail, I think he just wanted to see how far he could push it, or this company or person. I don't know if it's a person or not. And so Quicksilver, they decided to change the name to VSTR and make it look like an acronym. Yeah. But obviously we knew it was visitor, And I said, I was upset about it, and I said, you should just change the name altogether. That's like not what the name's not VSTR, and either buy the name or we'll figure out another name, But long story short, we did that, and then they sued us. They sued Quicksilver, and they won. Huh. And here's the thing: in those situations, that company has to show that it was detrimental to their brand, and they made less money. This company made more in the year or two where we were using the name VSTR, the couple years there. They actually gained more money at their own private label company, which no one had ever even heard of or seen. And they were able to successfully sue Quicksilver because there were some lies, I think, told in how they came up with the name. They were trying to say VSTR was an acronym, right. But it wasn't. We all knew it was not, and we had to do depositions. It went on for like a year or two. And it ended up costing Quick like $5 million, $7 million or something. It was crazy. Wow. And I'm like, gosh, that $300,000 didn't sound too bad now.
It should have paid the $250.
Yeah, whatever it was. And I hope I'm allowed to talk about that. I think I am, because it was all settled, right. But I don't think there was any ill will by anybody, We just were kind of committed to that name. And then I argued with the guys at Quick about, I didn't want to be at VSTR. I'm like, that didn't mean anything to me. So when I really, the more I read about textiles and sustainability and stuff, the more I said, look, my whole life I've made a career by being sponsored by a surf company that makes clothing and other things, obviously, but clothing has afforded me a good life. And I should know more about it personally. I should understand the company and how it's run. And I really wanted to dedicate to that and do organic cottons and regenerated or recycled materials, etc. So as Quicksilver was changing and ownership, and the importance became about the stock price instead of about the product. Yeah. And I personally wasn't behind that. And if I was a new guy on tour just getting sponsored, I'd probably take my check and shut my mouth. Yeah, exactly. But, I'm way down the road from that. And they came in and they were trying to shore up everything at Quicksilver, and they went from 15, 18 different brands they owned. Quicksilver Roxy, obviously. Mm-hmm. They had DC shoes, but they also had they started Dane's thing, Summer Teeth. They started my thing, the VSTR. They had all these other little brands, bikini companies, and it was 17 brands, I think, at Quick at one point. So they decided to shut them all down and just keep DC, Roxy, Quicksilver, and essentially they were trying to get their company to be valued at a certain thing and sell it. Yeah. and so that was to me that was against the spirit of why we all started surfing, started this company, worked at this company, and so I signed my last contract with Quicksilver, a 5-year contract in 2008, and it was signed on April 1st. Excuse me, because we had been. I actually, a lot of people don't know this, but I was really close with Pat Tenore, and I almost started riding for Ruka when they launched.
Right.
So I was in negotiation with them for a long time, for about a year, prior to signing my last Quicksilver contract. And when I went, the deciding factor was to ride for Ruka, I was probably going to make less money. It was going to be more work, and my whole history at this company would be sort of gone, like useless. So it was an easy decision for me in the end. But I wanted something fresh and new. And so when my contract was running out, I didn't like the direction Quicksilver was going. My manager, Terry, and I talked about it, and he's like, what do you want to do? And I said, I'd like to start something else. I said, eventually, looking a year out, 5 years out, 10 years out, maybe we work with Quicksilver again. Maybe we team back up somehow, but like I need to go this direction. And Terry's like, I'm with you, whatever you want to do. And I said, this is a big call for you because you get paid if I get paid like Quicksilver, so like you're not going to get a check. Yeah. And so we when that came up, I had one last sort of desperate attempt with McKnight and Pierre Agnes a few weeks, maybe a month and a half before my contract ran out, and I kind of pitched something to them about taking the company private again and blah blah, and I thought they looked at me like I was crazy. And but it was like at that point my decision was already made, but I was just like hoping maybe we can do something sort of like totally different. We take this company a different angle, and they didn't see that vision. And that's not my forte. They knew better than me, so it was just an idea by me. But when my contract ran out, they had no idea I wasn't going to resign. It was April Fool's Day, and we had to announce it. And
Perfect.
And I told Quicksilver, I told Bob and Pierre, I said, you guys can choose how you want to announce it, or you want me to, or whatever. But we got to,
let people know.
Yeah. And so it was the ultimate fake out. It was like the ultimate April Fool's joke that wasn't a joke.
Yeah, exactly.
After 24 years at Quicksilver, 23 years. And it was a sad day, I mean, Pierre and I cried on the phone together. Bob McKnight was trying to figure out how to go into like emergency mode and fix how do we deal with this? So he was more in shock. They were both in shock in different ways, but that's like I said, that was my family, and I still miss that to this day. We had this when the Euroforce team started, and it was Jeremy and Pierre and Thiago and just like we had the whole kind of Euro team going together, and they'd bring like Ricardo Rona, and he would train us, and Yannick and Patrick Bevan, and we had this really good group going around the world, and we were training and like pushing each other and stuff. I was doing a bit of training, and
you did train
a little. I mean, I play it down. I just don't like training.
But you've been training this thing, essentially,
but,
right?
Yeah, but I mean, I'll cut to the chase. I mean, we started working as soon as my contract ran out. We were already down the road quite a ways on working on Outerknown, and but we didn't have a name. We didn't really have funding. We didn't have clothes. We didn't have, it was like, okay, what do we do?
Let's sell this idea.
And my partner didn't know how to run a clothing brand. He was like out of the tax world or something, and he and I made Surf Ranch together. But we were like, well, we'll figure it out. And we got John Moore, and Terry was there with finding resources, the right people and stuff. I said, look, I want it to be sustainable. I don't want there to be a lot of waste in the making of this product. I want the leftover stuff to be recyclable. Number one to me was social compliance. I wanted the people in the factories to get paid well and have good working conditions. And that, to me, that was number one. Mm-hmm. Number two was the sustainability aspect. Yeah. But they were hand in hand. But I wanted to say I'm proud of the people who make the clothing in these factories, and they're healthy and they like working for us. Mm. And that was, I think you need to start there with anything you do work-wise. Yeah. The problem for the customer out there is that that's going to make it cost more. Yeah. And so you have to know, in some clothing, some fashion brands are just BS. They're just charging a lot of money because they have a name. Mm. But some clothing, like whether it's a Patagonia or Outerknown or certain companies, are doing better things at their brand, you're going to have to pay a little more for that, because the textiles might cost 2 or 3 times as much just to buy before you make a piece of clothing out of it. Recycled stuff is so expensive compared to like
For the process
some
of
cheap-
recycling it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's getting better now because more people are imparting that, employing that into their companies. But when we started, day one we launched, it was in July of 2014, I think. And I was at J-Bay and we launched the brand that day. And man, the whole feed, I don't know, was like, F you, you're just trying to gouge us on price. Dude, it was like, I think we felt like we just experienced a funeral and a death. It was
Trying
like,
to start something.
we couldn't talk about it for like a year. It was hard because I was trying to create something that felt special and was built really well and would last a long time.
Had integrity.
And a huge part of my following felt like I just ripped them off, or like I was trying to,
Yeah.
and that hurt. I mean, to my soul, you know, because I was so proud. I actually didn't even know the price of the clothes when we launched it. I had no idea. I just went, oh my God, we got a shirt, we got a jacket, we got this, and so I was so proud to announce it. And then my whole feed was just like, F you, Slater, you're just you sold out, you're this and that. I'm like, oh my God, I just might have ruined my life here, like my whole legacy of like trying to do the right thing, you know. And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, it's just something I had to take on the chin and go, well, you know, we're gonna have to get better. We're gonna have to figure this out. But so few people. Look, we were Fair Labor Association certified before making one T-shirt, one pair of trunks. No one had ever done that. We were the first company ever to be certified prior to launching. There was only like 9 companies in the world certified at the time or something. So we're trying to do the right thing, you know. But I didn't want to make cheap stuff, but I don't want it to be out of range for people to afford. But I also don't want it to just be like this thing that everybody has, and it's just like there's too much of it.
Yeah.
So there's a weird balance there. So you're gonna hurt some of your, you know, customers' feelings or something, you know, potential. You know, but we've experienced that with the wave pool too. Like the first time you do something, it's gonna be super expensive, and
A lot of firsts, mate.
yeah.
You've done a lot of firsts.
It's hard because I love the idea of trying to do something different.
Yeah,
And, you know, but at the same time, things are gonna come out of left field you don't expect that are gonna be painful to deal with, and you don't know the answer to them.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know how to respond to people and say, here's why it's more expensive. They were just like, no, we should be able to surf your wave pool. We should be able to buy these clothing, you know. And I don't disagree with them. Around this like same time that I left Quicksilver, I left Channel Islands. I had a double shocker, man. It was because Channel Islands is more of like truly my family than Quicksilver. Quicksilver was my surrounding, my support, and my all that. But Channel Islands is like my family. Like Al, when my dad passed away, Al came to my house and spent the last couple of weeks with him. You know, like this is like this isn't a company. This is like just it's my family.
Yeah.
You know.
So leaving
Like,
that was
and the only way I could leave it, there were 2 things that had to happen. One was that Travis Lee, who worked there, needed to come with me because he was my connection to all my boards and orders and all that stuff. So I needed Travis to agree to come with. And I basically said, whatever your price is to leave and make your life better, I'll pay it.
We'll run with it.
I'll make up for it, whatever it is. And I want your life to be easier.
Yeah.
And you make more money and work less, you know, like I was like, whatever we
I'm
can
in.
do. Yeah. Like whatever I can do to help make that happen, if we can make that happen. So I needed that to happen, and I needed Al's approval.
Yeah, right.
And so that was the hardest phone call, because I called Al and I said, Al, listen, there's this thing, you know, we might buy Firewire. We're way down the road on this. We already have the contracts and everything. I'm like, but I can't do it without your signing off on it. So I was like, I just got to call you. And I was like in tears.
Yeah,
I'm like,
must have
man,
been
this is,
difficult, yeah.
I was like, I don't even want to make this phone call. I'm like, I'm second guessing myself even calling you right now, you know? And Al, he goes, you know what, Kelly, you're still my son. You're still my family. Nothing changes between us. Business is business. And let's just separate that. Like nothing, don't even worry about
Don't lose
this
sleep,
at
man.
all.
That
Do
nice.
not lose sleep. He's like, you do what you got to do for your life, and I support you 100%. And I was like, oh my God, And that, that's why Al's such a great man.
Yeah.
And
Wasn't about him. It was about you. He was caring about you
caring
still
about me,
rather than himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, Al had also not been making my boards for a long time. And he was out of shaping.
Right.
Al hasn't shaped forever. His name's still on the boards, and that's the inspiration behind the brand for Brit and all the templates and the rockers and the old designs and stuff. And of course, that's going to live on forever through all the designs and people who ride for them and everything.
And they bought it all back, right? It's all in house now, so
which is awesome.
For
Burton,
the long term, they're intact.
Yeah, and Jake Burton and those guys were great. Like they were really, they came in and didn't change. They implemented different change in the background of business. Yeah. But they didn't come in and say, like, we want it to be Burton. We want it to be like how we do snowboards. Like they came in and went, how does Channel Islands make that? Who are your shapers? How do you guys create this team? How can we help? And that Burton was awesome. They were so good. And then, I guess they made I don't know the deal and all that, but I guess they made a nice deal for it to go back in the hands of Brit and team. And
the team,
what a feel-good story. I mean,
it really is.
I think Channel Islands is, you could argue they're the greatest board brand ever because of the history, the world titles, the designs, the influence on other people's boards and surfing around the world forever. It's, from Curran, even before Curran, but basically from Tom Curran on, the lineage, is really important there.
The and before in my mind.
So,
yes.
How do you get into Firewire? And what moves has he made there sustainably?
And then, so I went to Firewire. And the idea at Firewire was, because I've been so involved with design and stuff with Alf since early, from Keckley. With Keckley, I was helping with design when I was 12, 13 years old, But because I've been so inherently interested in the shaping room and learning to shape, Al gave me my own tools. And at one point, I'm like, why are you giving me all these tools? He goes, because I want to stop shaping boards. He's like, I need you to start to learn how to shape so I can go relax and go fishing. Yeah. And so when I decided to, that was probably the third thing. I needed to be able to have total freedom of design, because I felt guilty sometimes at Al, because I get some Morrises, I get some Simons, and I'd ride them in contests. I won trestles on a Simon. And Al drove down to come watch me surf.
Yeah, right.
And Al had just gotten cancer. He had just announced he had just said that he had found out he had cancer, and he came down to watch me surf. And I was like in shock about his cancer. But then he got down to the beach, and I had a Simon that felt the best for me out there. And I'm like, and I was like trying to almost hide it from him. Yeah. But he's gonna see me surf it and wonder what the board was. So I was like, Al, I'm sorry, I just got to tell you, I got this Simon I'm riding. He goes, man, you ride what you got to ride to win. And I was like, there's a selfless human, man. Yeah. There's Al's just the greatest. He's just the best guy you could ever know. And I went out, I won the contest on that Simon.
What about the packaging of your boards now? I know that you used to.
You
get your boards right with all that bubble pack. And it's just
I saw PK mention a thing about. So, even with Channel Islands, I get these boxes every year. It actually was really fun. They'd send me 2 boxes, sometimes even 3 boxes of surfboards, and the box was up to 10 feet long, because sometimes there'd be a 10-0 in there, but at least 8 feet long. And I'd get these boxes over. I'd stay with the Johnsons over there, and I'd have these boxes and this garbage, and I didn't know what to do with it. So I would actually make forts for the kids in the yard out of the boxes and around Christmas, and they would all like the forts better than their own Christmas presents. We'd make these little Rob would get boards, I'd get boards. We'd have 4, 5, 6. These 10-foot long boxes and make a big fort for the kids, like Rob's kids and Kona Johnson and them when they were little. But we'd have all this garbage left over in plastic wrap and stuff. And then with Firewire, when they would send me boards to here to Hawaii, because it's really the only place I get boards sent would be Hawaii for my quiver here. The rest of the place I'm just going with a board bag, taking it. And then I get these huge amounts of just garbage afterwards. I'm like, no one wants this. A couple times I took it to Arakawa and other people and said, can you use this to send boards from here? And a couple times they took it, but really it ends up in the dump or burning. And so I just felt bad about it. So I told Travis, I said, look, I do not care if I get a ding on my board. Just send it in a cardboard box just tape the boards together, but don't put any plastic. I don't want all this crap. Yeah. I'd have an 8-foot, 7-foot long box that was 4 feet high, full of plastic.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is horrible. I just don't want to be a part of this.
Yeah.
Like, it feels wrong.
Yeah.
Even a few times I said, absolutely do not send me that again. I'd get it again because might be somebody else in the factory, that works for us.
Yeah,
They don't want my dings. They're like,
They're just doing their job.
they don't want my boards to show up dinged. And so now we're luckily meeting Wes Carter through PK. He's got a really sustainable package, curbside recyclable, and you have this tiny footprint afterwards that can be used again or recycled or whatever. So that feels way better. Hopefully we are lessening that footprint of rubbish we're leaving behind.
Yeah.
And, but starting Firewire, just on that history, that was probably the third thing. I said I need total design freedom to work with any shaper, any designer. I don't want to be limited in that. And that was the one thing I felt bad at Channel Islands. Like, sometimes I liked the influence of somebody else's shapes that weren't Al's.
Yeah.
And so I don't want to be confronted with that where I'm like in this box. Like, at this point, I'm trying to still grow the design idea.
Yeah.
And so I worked with Tomo and I worked with Weber. You would have had some Webers back in the day, huh?
Oh, I did have a couple of Webers.
Yeah.
We worked on a surfboard shaping machine. There was a disaster to go down that trail.
Yeah, but and Takoro and Mike Wu and I don't want to forget anybody. Dan Mann.
Simon, a couple of Morris's in there too.
No, not in our line.
Oh, not in your line.
Not in Slater Designs.
They're all shapers that have boards within
these are all boards
Designs.
that we put out at Slater Designs. So
Yeah,
Mike Wu
amazing.
just now with the Great White Twin, and Dan Mann, we just did the S-Boss, and we had the FRK before that, and Mark Pesch, both of Mark Pesch's have helped with some designs on the Gammas we did. So it's like, for me, look, maybe sometime, because Rob has a brand within Firewire, maybe Rob and I will make a board together.
Yeah.
I've talked about that. It'd be fun to do after all these years, like the front half is Rob's and the back half's mine or something, or maybe the left inside rail is Rob's and the right inside rail is mine. We should do an ASIM. That'd be funny. Like, we should do one that's like, okay, we're only gonna make 50 of these. I'm gonna shape half a board, and Rob's gonna shape half a board, and we're gonna have a computer put it together.
I like this. I like where you're going.
But so, like, and then the idea is like, whoever I shape boards with, they could potentially become part of the line. If that shaper wants to be within Aquila, I didn't even talk about Aquila. Aquila and I made a couple great boards. We made the flat earth board, which was a troll on flat earthers.
Yeah.
And I got a lot of free press out of that because the flat earthers thought I was a flat earther.
Yeah, they loved it.
They thought I was poking fun at everyone else who thinks the Earth's a globe. Yeah. They're like, he knows, he's in.
Let's buy one of them boards.
It became an obsession of mine. I couldn't believe people thought the Earth was flat for years. And then I thought, wait, this board's made for small flat waves. It's got to be called the flat Earth. And it was actually like, that's the board that really got me back into twin fins some years ago with Aquila.
So tell us, mate, final question. Where does it go from here? What do you wake up tomorrow morning burning to do? What is inside of you, and where does the future take you?
Yeah, well, I'll probably find out maybe today, but I'm pretty sure the ship on the Olympics has sailed for me. So
I might confirm that for you, I think.
Yeah,
because the universality place, you understand that situation with that.
Yeah.
Only for countries with 8 or less athletes at the last Olympic Games. America ain't that.
Yep.
So it would seem that door closed. But you
you
may as well ring and ask.
I'm going to ring and ask. But look, in a absolute weird twist of events, like, it's not a 100% no matter what.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you why. And that's because,
I like it.
Well, John's been injured a lot. Mm-hmm. Griffin's recently been injured. Mm-hmm. Like, if
anything could happen.
If certain guys are injured,
yeah,
or sick or whatever, yeah. But the likelihood is like less than 1%. It's like a 0.1%.
But energetically, you have not surrendered that.
No, and
I like it, mate.
And to be honest, it's probably made me lose a lot of sleep because I there's a part of me that holds out some hope.
Yeah.
But I know it's not a reality, but
I think the world holds that hope too.
It's not an impossibility,
but
it's a very unlikely
scenario. Yeah, but
very unlikely scenario.
Keep it a little open.
No, but you can dream, and everyone needs to dream, and everyone in life's probably not going to get all their dreams. You know, but if you don't have them, they don't happen. And so you have to keep looking ahead. And if it's not the thing you wish for, it might be something else that you didn't know was better, you know. I mean, I played this game with myself in heats one time. It happened in Jeffreys Bay where I took this wave. I was surfing against Danny Wills. And this is how I remember things. They're very detailed because they're like messages from my life in some way. Yeah. And I was surfing against Danny. This is in 2006. And I caught this wave. And I was paddling into it going, don't catch this wave. You don't want this. This isn't the right way. Why are you going this way? But something just made me catch the wave. And I rode it, and while I'm riding it, I'm in the headspace. Why did you catch this wave? You're an idiot. You know when you go against your intuition. Yeah. and now you're in this negative flow, right? Now you're in this contra flow against what should be natural.
Your rhythm where you should be.
And so I fell on the wave, and then I have a pretty negative internal dialogue people don't know about. When I talk to myself and no one hears me. Yeah. And we all maybe have some of that, right?
So much.
Yeah.
Totally.
And so I start just giving myself a verbal lashing. And then right then I stop and I'm like, how is that going to help you? And I cut it off. I went, how's that going to help you? And do you honestly believe the things you say? I actually did this to myself in the water. I went, do you believe the things you say to yourself? Do you trust what you know? Do you think that those are the right things? And I remember sitting there, and it was all waves are coming, and it's hard to go meditative when you're in the act of doing, right? And I said, okay, if you believe yourself, if you're not full of shit, trust it. Yeah. And then I said, why did you catch that wave? And then I said, do you believe that all things happen for a reason? And if they do, you caught that wave for a reason. And what was that reason? And so I went down this, and it just took me into the good flow. Yeah. And I went, you know what? Maybe I caught that wave because it's going to put me in the right place. And I turned it around. Yeah. Because all things are a game in your head. Life's a fucking game in your head, dude. Life is like, you're just trying to figure out how to get from here to the other side of the room. That's it. Yeah. Like you're going to walk from here to there and your life's going to be over one day. Yeah. And that's it. Yeah. And the most perfect wave came to me. And I'm like, it's always available. Yeah. It's always available. And that's some bullshit because I won the heat, you know? But no, really. I mean, on some level. No, well,
it's a deep experience you've gone through because you've created the opportunity.
Yeah. And so I went, that's a good lesson in my life. You can turn the lemon into lemonade right there. All I did was change how my brain was seeing it. Yeah. And that positivity, you're a conduit to the universe. Mm-hmm. You're a conduit to the things happening around, the energy in the ocean, the people around you. You never know when you're going to say the right or wrong thing to someone. Like, you should be disciplined to be aware of your interactions on the planet. And I mess up all the time. Sometimes I mess up on purpose. Honestly. Yeah. Sometimes I say things online or I'll do something just to see how I feel after, and nothing that'll hurt someone. Yeah. You don't do something to hurt somebody like
intentionally.
That. But to potentially put yourself in a position to learn, because you got to keep learning. And one time, sometimes things happen and you don't think they're big lessons. You actually think they're absurd in the moment. And sometimes those are the good ones. Like I was in Brazil and I came out of a heat and I lost to Matt Banting, and I surfed really like mentally. I was just like trying so hard. I wasn't like calm and just going with like I wasn't trusting anything. Yeah. I was just like I had some other stuff going on in my life that people don't know about that was like really intense, and I wasn't present at all. I remember Rosie interviewing me after the heat, and she goes, after all these years on tour, did you learn anything out there? Or something like that? She said something really profound like that to me. And I kind of wrote her off. I was kind of rude to her, and I felt bad about it. I think I apologized to her later, but I wasn't trying to be rude to her. It was more the situation, like I said something like, if I don't know that by now, I'm an idiot. You know, instead of like, yeah, I should keep learning. Like, you know, because I just lost. I just lost the heat. I was all the way in Brazil, like, and I got to fly all the way home after a loss and a bad result. You know, it's hard to be happy. You can't be happy in that situation. And and I remember a year later, 2 years later, I went, man, what a missed opportunity to go. I could have learned out there.
What could I have?
Yeah, what could I have learned? What could I have? Even if I lost or whatever, you don't have to win to have gotten the lesson.
No.
You don't have to. It doesn't have to be the positive, happy, cherry on top at the end. Maybe
the judgment of it is bad. The judgment itself is bad. Has brought you into being judgmental of a situation without knowing it's.
And that was just like hurt and ego talking and emotion in the moment and stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, all emotions are valid.
Yeah.
None are more important than other ones.
No.
These are things I've learned through my spiritual journey.
Yeah.
There's not an emotion that's better than another emotion. Like, you need to feel sadness. Like when you have a cry, sometimes you go, man, how good did that feel?
Yeah.
And I don't allow that to myself.
Right.
I don't allow myself to get that emotional that often. Why? You know. But and anger, you need anger, because then you got to go through the throw of emotions to get to the next thing, and if you don't experience them, they just build up, and then you end up with cancer or something. Like, who knows? We don't know all this stuff.
No. Well, you don't know anything,
just
do you?
feel it. No.
Like you can feel. That's exactly it. Just feel it. I know many of the things that I've considered the worst things in my life. Retrospectively, you go, oh, that was so important, wasn't it? But in a moment, you've judged it, and all of a sudden, you've closed yourself off from learning through the judgment. Hey, we love you. Surfing loves you. Seriously, you've been a freaking fantastic ambassador for the culture, for the sport. What you've achieved has set bars that will maybe never be equalled. It's a big thing to say, but at the same time, mate, 11.
Thank you. No, and look, my ego doesn't want those beaten.
Yeah.
But also, by the time those will get beaten,
you won't give up.
No, I'd probably be so proud of the person who did it. I'd be so excited for them.
Yeah.
And so detached from it.
Because you more than anyone knows what they've been through to get to that point of success.
Yeah. No one knows the emotions you got to go through to get there.
Oh,
no one knows. No one. It's good for someone to feel that and understand that, because it'd be impossible for me to describe that. You just have to feel it yourself and have it be your own. But you look at a guy like John or Gabriel. I look at those guys. Their talent, their skill level, their steadiness mentally when they compete and stuff. They're just raw abilities. And Felipe, Felipe's getting hard done right now by people, I think, over him pulling off the tour this year and some of his results in bigger ways. This kid's so talented, man, and he's such a good guy, and he's such a committed dad, and he's the rest of his life is so much more important than this thing. Come on, he's such a good guy. He's I love Felipe,
Yeah.
And me and his dad have quarreled a little bit online and stuff, or at contests. I mean, he used to be whistling super loud in the area and it pissed us off, but we're like, fuck, he's already so good. Quit egging us on, your kid's already so much better than us in certain conditions. But, if those, it's an interesting question, because I think about those girls a lot, because I wonder if they would be as good without each other. Mm-hmm. They both got on tour in 2011 at the Midway Cut,
right?
The same year,
yeah.
And they have traded back and forth with event wins and heats and world titles. And if they existed 5 years apart, or if they weren't in the same era in their skill levels, would they just completely dominate, or did they need each other to bring each other up to that level? And I don't really see them. I almost kind of don't see them as rivals, because they're so different to me. Yeah, I think rivals are different. Shane and Rabbit, or Sean Thompson, Shane and MR. I mean,
you and AI, same sort of thing.
Yeah, we're very different. But when I say different, I almost feel like they're in different ecosystems or something. I don't they like each other, you know.
Yeah.
They're
Well,
not
there
fighting.
you go.
Yeah,
That's
you know?
different.
Yeah, and me and Andy hated each other during those times. You know, we became friends, and I think we were quite close when Andy passed away. We were buddies, you know.
Yeah.
But I don't feel that tension between them.
Yeah.
In heats, you go, oh my gosh, I want to see this heat. But I wonder if they would just completely dominate
Without
if the
each
other
other.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, for like, let's say they were 8 years separated, and
Might be good for
How would
you
it
that
be?
they're not separated.
well, that's what I was saying. Like, I think that either of them easily have
Have
that
that
ability
potential.
to dominate in almost every condition,
Yeah.
given the desire over a long period of time, for sure. And it's yeah, I think I heard the other day John's missed like 26 contests from injury over his career.
26.
Something it was
Something
20s,
like that.
it was mid-20s, yeah. And I mean, think of what he
Could have achieved.
I mean, there's an asterisk on everyone's world title since then,
Yeah.
for sure, because John wasn't in the mix. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's exciting. I like. Look, there's a part of me hating. If you've set a bar, you hate seeing someone pass it, but you need to be proud of them and you need to celebrate it.
100%.
And you need to hope that it happens, because that's what pushes. That's what pushes the next guy to be greater than he could have been.
And there's something wonderful about surrender, isn't there? And
Absolutely.
surrendering to whatever
Yeah,
and
I feel like
letting go.
I really look forward to being separated from competition altogether.
Yeah.
I look, if they'd give me the pipeline or Cloudbreak wildcard for 10 years, I'd take it, because I love that
Yeah.
platform, right?
Yeah.
It's not because of competition, it's because of that challenge
That way.
at that wave with those people,
Yeah.
with the best of the best, and like you get to be a part of that. It's really exciting and fun.
Super.
But as far as competition, I mean, look, I took 3 years off in the middle of my career. I've actually been on tour way longer now than I was in the first half.
Right.
Like, twice as long. More than
Wow.
twice as long. 20-something years after doing like 8.
Crazy.
But in those 3 years, I hardly watched the contest. I didn't really care.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I needed the separation. And yeah, I look forward to going and catching the best waves in the world for a long time still.
I wanted to, brother. Thank you very much for being on the Stoked Bloke Show. Thank you
right.
very much, everyone, for watching. I am busting for a pee, so I've got to go. I can't be here any longer.